For me, any form of social injustice is just wrong. Society should be a place where everybody is equal before the law, irrespective of your positioning, your status, your family, or your background.
The workplace in Nigeria is just another place where members of the LGBT community face discrimination and stigmatization. Once an employer or even a fellow colleague finds out, then the backstabbing starts, the blackmailing, and sometimes even job loss, which leads to mental health illness and in some cases, suicide. This is Untold Facts, where we tell it just the way it is, however uncomfortable it may sound. I'm Isabella Akinshare. Welcome to the show.
Society should be a place where everybody is equal before the law, irrespective of your positioning, your status, your family, or your background.
Today on the show, I have with me Miss Doyin Olaniyan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Isabella.
Doyin is a blogger, writer, foodie, a traveler, a TEDx speaker on how we may discover ourselves. She's highly opinionated and expresses herself through her blogs. Doyin, today's show is all about discrimination in the workplace. We're looking at Nigerian workplace and how members of the LGBT community face discrimination. Now, do you believe that today's employer in Nigeria is accommodating of people of a different sexual orientation?
I think it's an interesting question. And I can't speak generally in terms of today's employer, but I can only imagine it's really difficult for members of the LGBT community to be overtly expressive as to their sexuality in the workplace. I mean, the society in itself is not one that is open, and I mean, every part that feeds off the society is a microcosm of it. So I don't imagine that the typical workplace of today will be as accepting of diverse sexualities as it could be. So I would have to hazard a guess and say it could be better.
Okay, I like how you say it's a microcosm. So if they don't accept people of a different sexual orientation or sexual minorities in society, then it's just going to play out even in the workplace.
I believe so, because I mean, we all feed off our society. I mean, different segments cannot stand separate of what operates, you know, what feeds from the top. So it's the trickle-down effect, I guess. In a society that, as Nigeria, that is not as accepting of various sexual orientations, I would believe that workplaces and even families might also not be as accepting of that.
So do you believe that more people are discriminated against in Nigeria that have a different sexual orientation?
I mean, generally, we see it. I mean, people are discriminated against. So,
do you have any personal experience? People
no,
you
I
know
don't.
of?
I don't, because I mean, it's hard to say. It's a society where people even have trouble coming out. So, what many people do is just hazard a guess and say, oh, I think this person might be gay because of X, Y, Z. And then the attitudes and the discrimination starts, you know, to build from there. So it doesn't even have to be an overt expression to say, I am gay, I'm queer, I'm whatever. You know, people's perceptions of it is enough to trigger that negative reaction towards it.
Okay, let's look at the blogosphere, because you're a blogger. Do you believe, or do you, what's your opinion when people put up blog posts about people that are of a different sexual orientation? Do you see the comments, for example, being positive, accepting, or more of negativity?
It's actually diverse, and I mean, it's a reflection of who we are as people. You know, people have diverse opinions. And it's interesting you ask that question, because just the other day I was reading through the blogs on the first episode of Untold Facts, and it's a huge mix of opinions, of reactions to it. I wouldn't say it tilts more towards negative. I wouldn't say it is all, you know, kumbaya, accepting and welcoming. But I think the important fact is that that discussion is on there, and each individual has the chance to share their view on it and also to be heard, you know, whatever their views are on it. So it's a diverse mix of opinions, you know, that reflects our complexity as humans.
Do you think it's still such a taboo topic?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, anything sexual is taboo in Nigeria. Um, we're such a religious community. We're such a don't ask, don't tell community. So, I mean, discussions on sexuality, whatever it may be, whether it's the use of contraceptives or whether it's the LGBT issue or sexual protection, sexual health issues, it's always going to draw that. That reaction of what's going on here. So we're still getting there, but as I said earlier, the discussion has started, conversations have started on it. We see people talk about it, we see people react to it, we see people so it's diverse really, but the bottom line is discussions are ongoing about it, which is great.
So back to the workplace, sexual minorities in the workplace who are liable to be prosecuted, how can they protect themselves?
I think the first thing to underscore is that you don't owe it as an obligation to anyone to discuss your sexuality or your orientation at work.
So you think they should hide it?
It's not so much as hiding as, understanding the fact that you're under no compulsion to discuss your sexuality at work, and you shouldn't in any way feel compelled to discuss it. As to the issue of protecting yourself within the workplace, it's unfortunate that I don't have any easy answer for that. In fact, I have no answers, for that. I'm not a specialist in that, so I really can't speak to that. But what I'll say in that regard is it's really important, and I say this with all sense of responsibility because I also know it could be difficult, but it's really important for individuals to be their authentic self.
Don't hide. You don't need to tell anybody what your sexual preference is, but at the same time, be yourself. So in being yourself, what if the questions start coming? Do you deny yourself, or do you say, this is who I am, take it or leave it, even though you might risk losing your job or, being the talk of the office?
So that is a complex issue, really. And to that, I would say, as much as possible, seek guidance as to how to approach it. I'm not in the best position to give that guidance. But I do know for a fact that there are organizations in Nigeria, tiers, for example, which can give guidance as to how to broach that topic if and when, it does arise.
Considering how, as you've put it, Nigeria is a place where anything about sex is taboo, so when these people find themselves in these situations, where can they turn to? What can they do? They risk losing their jobs, they risk being labeled something other than what they are, and it's just becoming a nightmare to keep working in that place. Where can they turn to?
So I gave the example earlier of organizations such as Tears, who do an amazing job of providing guidance in such situations. Also, I know there are bloggers, there are blog spots and websites, on the internet that people can, ask those sorts of questions and seek professional guidance as to how to go about it. I would encourage anyone, facing those issues to explore those options, online options, and also organizations such as this.
So how can conscious, progressive employers build safe spaces for people of a different sexual orientation to work peacefully and professionally within that space?
So it goes back to my earlier point to say, in matters of employment, you're being employed to do your job. And so really, your sexuality shouldn't be a factor into your job performance, so to say. As to the question of how employers can build a safe space, I think it's really important for companies to seek to get their organizations to an inclusive space, in terms of educating employees as to the diversity that abounds, in society. And it's not just sexuality, it's religion, it's, your beliefs, your values, a diverse range of views, on such topics.
Do you think we should have like an index that measures organizations who promote and actually practice inclusivity?
Well, I really don't know the statistics, but I'm sure there are people who bother, to actually see what organizations are progressive in their views, what organizations, create a safe and welcoming environment for employees. So, I mean, if that's not already the case, it wouldn't hurt for us to have that. And, you know, celebrate stories of people who can do their job, you know, who can go to work and just get on with their job, or of organizations that are, you know, progressive and welcoming of diversity in the organization. So it will be a great idea if it's not already in practice.
So to bring our discussion to an end, I have a final question, which is, imagine a friend, someone you know, a friend of a friend who's a member of the LGBT community in Nigeria, faces prosecution because of their sexual preference and loses their job and comes to you and says, what do I do?
It's traumatic in itself, losing a job. And I can only imagine how much more traumatic it will be to lose your job on account of your sexuality. There's no easy answer to this. And, you know, for anyone who is currently going through that, I sincerely empathize with such a person. Again, because I am not a professional in these matters, I can only refer, you know, you to people, or that person to people who are more skilled in handling this, you know, for guidance.
Thank you, Doyin.
You're welcome.
So there you have it. Doyin has told us about the need for employers to recognize the value that members of the LGBT community bring to the workplace. They should not be judged based on their sexual preference, their sexual orientation, but are they good at the job? And if they're good at the job, they should remain on the job. And then if an employer is preaching inclusivity, then that employer should live by its word. That means if there are cases of discrimination, that employer should take it seriously. Now, let's not forget about websites, materials, books, journals, and even organizations such as Tears Nigeria that members of the LGBTI community can access and get the necessary help should they lose their jobs. Doyin, it's been great having you on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank
you.
You're welcome.
It's been an interesting, informative, exciting season of Untold Facts. On one episode, we looked at the laws. In Nigeria, we have laws discriminating against members of the LGBTI community. On the same hand, we have laws protecting everybody, every human being, human rights, that irregardless of your sexual preference, your race, your gender, you are protected by the law. Let's take a look.
What comes to mind really when you see an average Nigerian being abused without perhaps the opportunity to seek for redress? What is your usual reaction?
Okay, thank you. My usual reaction would be to think of other ways, you know, through which people can get redress. The idea is that there's no protection whatsoever for LGBTI people in Nigeria at the moment. But you don't have to just seek redress in Nigerian courts. You can go to the ECOWAS court. You can go to, you know, you can go as far as you like.
On another episode, it was all about receiving quality healthcare in Nigeria. Imagine a country where it's against the law to have same-sex marriage, and then you meet healthcare practitioners who allow their own personal beliefs, whether it's based on culture or religion, to get in the way of providing service, providing healthcare. And as a result, a lot of these people suffer in silence.
Why should someone's sexual orientation or sexual preference even affect, you know, their access to healthcare? Should this really matter?
I think I'm not going to answer it with a yes or no. I'll answer with a lengthened statement. The yes or no is that access to health by whoever and whatever should not be influenced by anything. And that's building on the hypocritical of the physicians. It's about ensuring that whoever, whatever they are, have access to health, irrespective of anything. However, I think what we see in terms of discrimination of sexual minorities to access to health is a reflection of what the health system in Nigeria has deteriorated to be, where persons and healthcare personnel and medical personnel choose to discriminate based on personal values.
On yet another exciting episode, we looked at the role of coming together and talking about LGBTI communities, and LGBTI organizations. One person can't do it alone. For there to be quality, each person with their own professional expertise needs to come together for the common good and common goal. Let's take a look.
There is a way that the society dictates on how we live our lives. So even without him not being gay, you can be rest assured that there are other things that, you know, hold back who he is.
To make you feel odd.
That could make you feel like as if you're odd among your peers. But, you know, one of the things I say to people is the fact that there is nothing you can do. If people have the chance and opportunity to change who they are, they will buy it. And the moment you realize, like Pamela said, the moment you get to that crossroad where you know you've tried every single road method, you tried deliverance, you've gone through church yourself, you've gone through prayer yourself, you've gone through every single thing you go through just to fit in. Because at the end of the day, it's about fitting into this, what the society say is correct and what the society think is right. The moment you get to that crossroad, you then begin to realize that, you know, there is no other road.
On yet another episode, we looked at the backlash of discriminatory laws in Nigeria that are against same-sex marriage. We looked at how it causes pain, suffering, and a lot of people are suffering in silence because they have no one to turn to, no legal help, nobody to help them.
Every time you hear, you know, someone being abused or someone being, you know, given without the opportunity to express or seek redress when their rights are being infringed upon, what is always your initial reaction?
Well, it's some sort of, how will I put it, anger at the social injustice involved. I'm the type of person that if I'm driving on my own and I see, for example, maybe a policeman harassing another driver, I feel, in fact, I often try and park and stop and see what's going on. For me, any form of social injustice is just wrong.
On yet another episode, we talked about religion and sexuality. God is love, God is truth, and he created all men beautiful. Now, the subject of LGBTI in Nigeria is something that is frowned upon, and religious bodies are no different. They see it as a sin, and even the discussion about it is frowned upon and seen as taboo. Let's take a look.
You cannot reconcile your inner self without knowing yourself and accepting yourself. And it is when you accept yourself, then it now affects your presentation to the outer person. And just like Reverend Jide said, everybody is created in God's image. Just like he said, we need to move away from the box. Having a same-sex loving relationship does not necessarily mean sexual intercourse.
True.
So we need to move away from the WAP discussion about that to move to the reality.
On another episode, we looked at this question: who benefits from violence? Members of the LGBTI community are under a lot of violent attacks. But when has violence ever been the solution? The laws give people the right or empower them to carry out violent attacks because of their own personal convictions and beliefs.
I mean, like he said, basically it's all about humanity. It has nothing to do about being gay or being straight or whatever, whoever it is that you are. Basically, simply put, a human being had been hurt or the rights of a human being had been breached. And in that regard, it's looking at it from that human rights perspective that, okay, fine, what necessary precautions or what necessary actions have been taken in defense of this person, and how has this person been catered for in that regard? Has this person sought all, been able to exploit all justice systems that we have, and what are the state actors doing about it, basically?
We looked at people coming out of the closet, out and about. Should people remain in the closet because the laws in Nigeria prevent them from living a lifestyle? Or should they come out and own their sexuality? Let's take a look.
All right, now, Doyi, let me ask you this. Coming out, self-discovery, obviously there must be some link, but is it in all cases where one has to come out, that you have to discover yourself? Or maybe I should say, those who are out, have they necessarily discovered themselves?
As I said in the video,
for me, it's a never-ending journey. You know, coming out definitely when you admit it to yourself, as Kenny rightly said, you've discovered a part of yourself and you've accepted it. But then it's a journey. Self-discovery really is a journey. You find out different things about yourself every day. I mean, even for us, I think you would also agree that, you know, with everybody you meet, the people you interact with, you learn new things every day. So
Sure.
I wouldn't say that the moment you come out, you've discovered
That's
self. You
it.
know, it's a part of it, but it's not the full story.
On yet another episode, it was all about the role of the media. It's been said that the media is supposed to hold a mirror to society. But does the media really tell the stories as they are, however uncomfortable they might sound? Or does the media allow itself to be bullied by viewership or put a lot of sensational stories?
Well, to be fair to the journalists, you can't really take them out from the society they find themselves. Like he said, they are also being influenced by religion, by the socio-cultural factors around them. So when they are when they are reporting some of these things, the issue of objectivity is also questioned. What affects their objectivity in reporting LGBT issues? Are their religion affecting it, or their upbringing in terms of the socio-cultural factor? And one thing also that we also need to also remember is that media houses are there to make profit.
On yet another episode, we looked at how members of the LGBTI community in Nigeria can access quality mental health care. A lot of them are depressed and have suicidal thoughts, but they have no one to talk to because even the healthcare practitioners, the psychotherapists, the psychologists are allowing their own personal convictions to get in the way of providing quality mental health care.
Access to healthcare services is not equitable. Why? Because they have several barriers they have to cross in order to access healthcare. And stigmatization and discrimination among the healthcare workers was identified as a major barrier that is still challenging members of LGBT communities across the world. So it is not only peculiar to Nigeria, you know, even in countries where, you know, same-sex relationships do not have criminalization issues related to them, they're still having these barriers because healthcare workers' biases still influence the way they attend to LGBT. You know, so there is a lot of data to show that the way the healthcare services are being delivered to key population communities is becoming a key limitation.
What an interesting, informative, and insightful season it has been right here on Untold Facts. Tears Nigeria would like to thank our partners, our guests, and our viewers. Are there any topics you would like to be discussed on this program? Let us know. Join the conversation online at Tears Nigeria on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Remember to use the hashtag Untold Facts. Till we come again your way, I'm Isabella Akinshare signing out on Untold Facts. Bye for now.